So my name is Venkat Ayadevra, and I'm the Group Program Manager for Office 365 Groups, which means I am accountable for the product direction, the roadmap, delivering on the roadmap. And I have a bunch of folks from my team here. Also, colleagues we work with closely from Teams team. We have a couple of, we have MVP, Martina, who works very closely with us and is presenting. We have folks from Cerner who are also presenting on groups. So a lot of folks, and the way, this is a 20-minute session, and we're going to go through questions both here, and we got some when we posted about the session on Twitter. But don't worry, after the 20 minutes, we are happy to take more questions from you here. And even if you have to clear this area, we'll be at the booth. We want to make sure each and every one of your questions, we make sure to work through those. So excited to be here. And I have here Mike, who I presented along with yesterday on the group session. He's going to be reading off questions we got from Twitter. And I have Arun here, who is going to look for who raised their hand. So if you have a question, please raise your hand, and we'll try to get to the first one we saw. And Ravin here will walk the mic around, just so the logistics. And if the question is easy, then I will try to answer it. But if it's hard, I'm going to turn it to one of my team here so that they can pick it up. So that's the way it works. Maybe we thought we'll kick off with one question we've gotten a lot from customer, from some of you in meetings at the booth. And this is, how should I talk to my end users about what is groups? Because a lot of folks are confused, right? And I would say, we have published governance blogs on how you can get going, as an administrator or as an IT function, rolling out groups, what to watch for. And this feedback has come in, like we hear it loud and clear. So shortly, we want to publish an update to that to also include some kind of here's how you communicate what groups are to your users, and then you can take that and customize it. We're working on that. Certainly, we've gotten the feedback, hear it, and then we're certainly acting on it. So with that, I wanted to turn it over and see what questions you folks would like to ask. Go ahead. Yeah, I think the gentleman has it. Oh, okay.
My name is Matika. I'm from the Ohio Public Employees Retirement System. We are a very slow adopter of Teams and Skype. I understand there's a transition. Can I take what I've created in Skype and migrate those groups in everything that we've done in Skype over to Teams and then groups? Or are they totally separate things that will never have anything to do with each other?
I see. So migration from Skype groups to Teams. We have Roshan here. Roshan, you want to take the mic? Here you go.
Check. Yeah. So we should probably have a deeper conversation on that. There is guidance on how to go from Skype to Teams, but the short answer to that is, and I would like to understand better your scenario in terms of what are the Skype. Is it contact groups that you're talking about, or what exactly are the group, or are you talking about group chats in Skype, right? So just a quick answer to that is that the way Teams uses groups is for the core collaboration capabilities, which is Teams and channels, right? But the group chats in Teams are not modeled on Office 365 groups, but Skype migration is a dedicated, we have specific sections, as well as there is in the booth, you would find actually a migrating from Skype to Teams booth over there. So we'd be happy to walk you in detail through that one. But the direct answer to your question is Skype contacts map to group chats in Teams and not to the Office 365 groups that Venkat is covering. Thank you.
Okay, who had their hand up? Next question.
They're at the side.
Oh. Hi, my name is Scott. I'm with NCCI in Florida. When our users create a team, a lot of times they want to use the O365 group as a distribution list in Outlook. Problem is it doesn't normally show up. Is this behavior going to change, or is there a way we can easily deal with this issue that comes up with our user base?
Roshan, would you like to take this one too? You're a popular guy.
Again, great question. Thank you for asking that. So the change which we actually made in May 2018, roughly, right, together with the groups team and us, was based on the confusion that, users were creating teams and it was showing up in Outlook. So people were emailing, then the conversations got fragmented because there are these emails over here, there are these teams and channel collaboration over here. So based on that feedback, and that was the majority feedback, we made a change to automatically hide groups that are created in Teams from Outlook and Gal. So there are two things that you can do about it. One is these are based on settings in the group, so which you can actually, as an admin, you can change it using PowerShell so that you can change. There is a view in Outlook clients and show in Outlook clients and show in Gal, right? So there are two settings, hidden from Outlook clients and show in Gal. So there are two settings you can flip on a group by group basis, the ones for which you need. And the second thing that we have done is if there is an Outlook group that is already active and you convert that into a team, in that point, we don't hide it, right? So if it is an existing group that's already used for email, but this was directly done as a feedback. And to the longer term question, we are definitely, if you have actually seen some of the Teams keynotes, etc., there is a lot more Outlook and Teams, Yammer and Teams integrations happening where we will make it richer. And as a part of that, we are definitely looking at how can we kind of maybe allow users to opt in or something similar, but at least allow that capability. But right now, as an admin, you can toggle that set, or if a group gets converted from Outlook to Teams, that capability will continue to exist.
And just to add to that, now we are starting to get better data on the types of scenarios where people are using multiple applications and being forced to create the same group or team in multiple apps, like one of your cases. We have nothing concrete to share yet, but we're looking at what should we do in terms of these types of constructs where you created a group and you want to address it in Teams, or you create a team, you want to address it in Outlook or somewhere else. How should we surface that to the users? At least so you can you define your group once and use it everywhere. That's something we're working through. But for now, what Roshan said should hopefully unblock you.
Yeah, as the administrator, I've been turning it on, but we're trying to make it self-service for the owners of the teams.
Yeah, I understand. And
yeah, so there's also a couple things I'd like to add. The flag that Roshan described, that hidden from Exchange clients, right now it has to be flipped through a PowerShell commandlet that the administrators need to run. Just within the past week, we actually exposed this through Microsoft Graph. So it's now in our API layer as well. Which is the first step to making it available in other parts of our apps, where perhaps there's a setting that we can expose in the future to make it more self-service. So you might even look across some of the partner experiences that are being built, because now that's a setting that they can consume as well. So the first step was to make sure that there is a way to flip it for admins, and now that we've exposed it in the API, now we can light it up in other experiences too. Maybe even like Microsoft Admin Center or places like that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Eric from University of Illinois. And you might have actually already answered this question, maybe, but one problem we have is we have people that create teams, but then now they want to go back to create an Office 365 group from that team. It seems like you can go from Office 365 group to Teams, but you can't go the other way. Are you planning to address that at all?
When you create a team, you are creating an Office 365 group underneath the covers. So really, it's about using some of these mechanisms to make it visible in Outlook.
Okay, so maybe that's what it is it's just creating a hidden group.
When you create a team, it is automatically creating an Office 365 group. That's how policies are getting applied. So it's more that it's probably not showing up in the navigation in Outlook, so the user thinks it didn't get created, but actually it is there. In a lot of these, whether you create a Yammer connected group, a Teams team, or you go to Stream or SharePoint, you create a team site, there is an Office 365 group underneath the covers. And some of that is confusion we have caused because the group is a platform and is also the UI construct in Outlook. So I understand the confusion. It's something over time with better messaging and also looking at how to improve the UI, we hope to clarify. Thank you.
So we will be hanging around after this session. I would love to know more about the scenarios where you want this interop so that we can do that the right way. Like, why do you want it to show up in other places? What are the workloads that you need so that we can design the appropriate experience to kind of satisfy those scenarios? So we can take that offline right after this. Thank you.
Hi, I have a question regarding Yammer, actually. And because I was at the session earlier this morning where they were explaining the new Yammer and the communities and everything. And I was wondering how it would work with the Yammer connected groups.
When you create a Yammer community, underneath the covers, it is also creating an Office 365 group. And that Office 365 group comes with its own SharePoint team site and other assets. Today, that Yammer group is not addressable, let's say, from Outlook or Teams. I think we are working to bring those experiences in, like they covered in the talk. Now, in the past, people have created groups. Those may not have been connected to Office 365, but increasingly, we are encouraging customers to connect more and more. And there is this capability the Yammer team is working on called Microsoft 365 native mode. And when that's ready, when you deploy Yammer in that mode, by default, all groups, all users and all content is connected to Office 365. And in that case, there is an Office 365 group backing every single community. And whatever mechanisms you use for governing the entire suite, that would just work for Yammer itself. I don't know if that answers your question. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, my name is Steven. I work at Ørsted in Denmark. I have a quick question about moving from existing SharePoint team sites to groups, as we want to be able to deploy groups as the minimum service that we give in collaboration platforms within our company. So we'd like to stop just delivering team sites and as a minimum deliver groups, if not teams on top of that. One of the situations I'm looking at in terms of user adoption is if you have a team site, then you have an owner that has a certain level of responsibilities and has to do some things within that team site. If you groupify that team site, you're doubling or tripling the level or the burden of responsibility onto the site owners for the services that they're getting. The services are very positive, but the owners are seeing it's not just a little increase in knowledge and complexity of what I have to do. It's quite a jump in everything I have to take care of in every single group service that's attached now to what I used to be really just permissions in the document library, which was they were using for. Do you have any best practice on how to really give that message as you're getting a lot of really good services, but yes, you 2 or 3 site owners are going to have a responsibility level that's going to jump way high as soon as we give you a group.
I see. Thanks for the question. That's a great one. Can I ask you, what is the increased burden they're seeing, though? What is it that the group owner is having to do extra? Like, if you can give me a couple of instances.
Trying to understand all of the different services that are connected to their group, because before they just had a document library. And that was quite easy for them to navigate. They had folders, unfortunately, and metadata and permissions to the site and permissions to the library. And that was pretty much all they had to navigate from. So both from a user service that they want to do more of what a group can do, for example, planner, stream, all of the different services, and what we'd like to accomplish in IT on the back end, naming convention, expiration policy that are only possible as if your service is as minimum a group. They're seeing that everything they have to take care of permission-wise, understanding how Planner works, understanding how Teams work, understanding how Stream work, when the core of their deliverable is really just working within the group itself. Now they also have to say, I am also sort of attached as an IT manager for my own little service.
Got it. So maybe I'll answer it in 3 different parts. The first one is what you said, which is, like I said, this is a popular ask we get, which is, help me explain to my users what they're getting. What is Office 365 groups and how can they use it, right? So part of the challenge is we haven't given you a way to explain it where they see the value. That's number one. And actually, if the way we've designed it, there should be no additional burden for the user. Because, and that brings me to the second part. The owner of the group should not have to go train their users. What we try to do is when they add a bunch of folks to a group, every user gets a welcome mail, right? In Teams, if they're accessing the team, then there are, I think, navigation constructs so you can see all the different assets. So hopefully the owner doesn't actually have to go say anything to the team. You just have it. And even worst case, if all the users are continuing to use the SharePoint team site, that's okay. If that's what they want to start with. And organically, maybe they start using the OneNote, or they use the calendar, or they create channels, whatever they do, right? So we should not be creating any additional burden. So, but it may tie into the first one, which is, hey, since I don't know what exactly is an Office 365 group, and all these things got created, I wonder if I have to do a whole bunch more work for my team. And actually, that's not true. Which brings me to the third thing. This is much further out. We have gotten asks from folks, folks here saying, if I'm converting somebody from, let's say, like in your case, right, from SharePoint team site to this group, maybe initially they just want that resource provision. And on demand, let the user come and opt in. The owner say, okay, now I want to add the team OneNote or something else, right? In reality, anytime you create a group, we may end up creating a core set of resources, because without it, the experience breaks in a lot of apps. But beyond that, make it on demand. It's something we're considering. It's not true today. Today, we kind of go instantiate the whole thing. And that does sometimes make the users feel overwhelmed. But the combination of the three things: number one, explaining what groups is, where we can, we can help you. The second is understanding and tell us if somewhere we're missing it. It is creating some burden for the users, or for the owners of the group. And the third, over time, if you're able to do on-demand provisioning, I think it'll simplify your problem. So.
Sorry, I'll just add to the previous question, right? So I'll start with the original scenario that you mentioned. For converting from sites to teams, now owners are like, they have a prompt where they can hit a single button and convert that to a group or a team, right? And the reason, at least, the promise that we want to make is when you convert that into a team, you can do open collaboration within the team or private collaboration with private channels now. And the owner doesn't have to now worry about managing permissions. The owner doesn't have to worry about managing folders, right? You create a channel, which is a project-based topic. In EDU, it's a classroom, right? Like you can have subject-based things, or for staff collaboration, right? So you think about it conceptually in terms of the natural patterns of work or productivity that you want to enable. You took the example of planner, right? So adding a plan or a task board to a team or a channel for a specific project is you go hit a plus. There is a whole host of apps and extensibility that teams supported. You pick planner. You don't worry about, do I permission the planner the right way? Unlike with just managing at the site level or at the mailbox level, etc., you don't actually now have to worry about that. From an owner's point of view, it should actually make it easier and smoother. And if there are friction points, we would love to hear about that, because the whole promise of Teams as the hub for Office 365 is to not have to worry about the individual. And groups is the glue that actually makes it possible, right? And Teams is the user interface on top of it that actually makes all of this seamless, right? That's the way we approach it. Thanks for raising that question.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, has there been a consideration to support a folder structure within a group, even as just like an optional type of feature, kind of to make it a better a replacement for a shared mailbox, or is kind of the guidance to continue to use shared mailboxes, if you need that, but then the groups? Yeah,
this is one of our top user voice requests. But at this point, the Outlook team is still looking through how, there are no firm plans yet. And the reason is, I thought maybe I can explain a little bit. In the foundational layer, opening up folders is not hard. It's the Outlook team has to carefully think through the navigation model in the app. Because today, if you think about it, all the groups appear under the node called groups. But if you have a shared mailbox, it appears as distinct mailboxes, and then they're folders. And already when people are member of a large number of groups, there's a lot of groups. And now if you had folders, it's a level of nesting. So we know the current navigation model wouldn't really work well. That's one. The second thing is, if mainly you want the folders to organize messages or mail, that's a simpler problem. If in some cases shared mailboxes are used to have a shared pool of contacts, then we also have to enable contacts in the group's mailbox. But really the toughest part for us is the navigation model, to do it in a way in Outlook. So many people use Outlook, we just have to do it very carefully. So the Outlook team is thinking through that. And I think before we can commit to anything there, we have to understand what that UI model is going to look like. I know that doesn't address your need, but that's kind of where we are. So.
Can I add to that too? Yeah, I think when you look at the folder scenario, there's a couple of other scenarios we have to consider as well. Like, for example, if we introduce the ability to create that folder, we have to ask ourselves, well, who has that ability? Is it just the owners of the group? Do members have the ability to create those folders? How many levels deep do we go? What happens if you place a mail in that folder? Can anyone move it or reorganize the folders? And in addition to that, there's also a set of standard folders that get exposed on a mailbox, like the sent items, deleted items, things of that nature. So as we think through the scenario, we have to really check all those boxes and say, does it make sense to expose a deleted items folder? Can you recover? Can you not? Do we start with something basic? So it takes time to work through all that, in addition to everything Venkat described.
So the My Groups portal, what's the plan for that in the future? Nobody seemed to have talked about it so far here.
Are you talking about the Groups Hub or the My Groups and Azure Active Directory?
The My Groups and Azure Active Directory.
You know, they're still continuing to enhance and support it. For users that are not heavily active in Outlook or any of the other experiences, that's been a good alternative where a user can go and they can see their list of groups and manage membership. So, you know, right now there's no plans to deprecate that. It's still there, being used and being supported. And you'll see across the suite, there's a variety of different places you can manage and see your groups. And sometimes that's a better destination for certain users.
One thing I would say is a lot of new investment has gone into the Microsoft Admin Center. Increasingly, we're trying to send people there to kind of manage different things in the suite. So over time, you will see a lot of options or settings and configurations related to groups show up there. Usually all the general ones would show up there. And then when it becomes very service specific, like a SharePoint specific or team specific or maybe Azure Active Directory specific, those we would route them to these specialist portals. That's the general direction we have taken. And yeah, that's kind of our direction.
Okay, we might have time for just one last question.
There were two here. We'll take both of them, yeah.
Let's take both of them.
Another question. So in the EDU space, you know, we have appreciation for the, you know, the self-service model of everybody being able to create the Office 365 groups. Although a lot of EDU institutions have actually chosen to completely block that because of kind of the central control, you know, wanting to stay in control of that. But we do have a need to like maybe pre-provision Office 365 groups based on roles or you know, preset membership that we don't want them to be self-service. Can you give any guidance as to the best way to do that? Like if we can derive it from an AD security group that gets synced into Azure AD, is there a way we can sort of map that in as a, you know, make a group a member of the Office 365 group or something so that when, as people fall in and out of that security group, then the membership of the Office 365 groups are updated the same way?
This is one of our other top asks, what we call group-driven membership, if I understood your point correctly, which is, can I make a group a member of another group, which allows me to not have to go touch every single group when somebody leaves a company or moves. We are working on it. It actually was on a roadmap last year, but it's something where it's still a work in progress. We're still working through all aspects of it. It is something we definitely want to support, but it'll take some time. But we have actually active investments going on in that space.
I'll add two more to that. Specifically for the EDU space, there is a school data sync that is supported. So if you have a learning management system or something that actually has a roster, etc., you can actually use that to pre-provision, like at the start of the semester or the start of the year, you can actually use that tool. And the second one is the groups graph APIs. We have rich graph API support for all of this functionality. So if you want to integrate directly with, let's say, whatever solution you use for maintaining either from AD or from the school rosters that you manage separately for staff, students, etc., you can actually use that to use a graph APIs to directly create teams and even provision. We even support what we call templates. So you can actually, like for the class, PLC, team types, etc., all of those are supported through. So you can actually create different channels, teams, pre-provision all of that before the start of the semester. And we also support archive so that at the end of that, you can archive the team from a lifecycle perspective. So specifically for EDU, so these are really common and high usage scenarios in EDU. Thank you.
How you doing? Augie Rakanati, Spark Therapeutics. So in our company, we decided to turn off teams to allow people to create their own teams, but now I see there's an approach to expire teams. So what happens when you expire teams? Does that also remove the group entirely, or can you control it? You can keep it as a distribution list?
Yeah, so the expiry policy is supported at the group level, and like Venkat clarified, all teams are backed by groups, right? And they go hand in hand, right? If the group gets deleted or the team gets deleted, both go together. So expiry policy can be set by the admins on group. So you can say every owner has to certify that this group needs to be renewed at the end of 6 months or 1 year. The new enhancements that we announced and which is going live right now is the auto renewal of groups based on activity. So once you set the policy, if groups have activity either in Teams, in Outlook, in SharePoint, select activity that, you know, these are not like, let's say, a bot, etc., but these are actual user-driven activity, the groups will automatically renew, which means that the teams will also automatically renew.
So with that, are we on time? Yeah. So again, we're going to be here to take more questions. Just quick shout out, a bunch of sessions which go deep into groups here. We did the overview one yesterday. So please, highly encourage you to come to these sessions. A lot of interesting content. Again, especially the one on Wednesday. There's one by by our friends from Cerner and one of our team members, Madhuri, on what their experience was deploying groups at scale. So a lot of useful lessons there. We also have here David Johnson from our own IT department, who's also a great source of information on how Microsoft is deploying and managing groups and teams at scale. And again, we're always happy to talk to you either here, but if you need to go to some other session, then we're always there at the group's booth, and please stop by. And thank you so much. Appreciate it.